Hello, I'm Jared Discord, and I want to answer a question. Who is the strongest rival in the Yu-Gi-Oh series? Generally second only to the hero in power, the rival serves as the primary obstacle throughout a given story arc or series. They can range from goofy, to helpful, to in some cases openly hostile and antagonistic. Before we begin, we must discuss exactly what makes a rival in the Yu-Gi-Oh series, and we set up these general guidelines. 1. They must have dueled the protagonist at least 3 times. The duel could have been ended prematurely, but they have at least had to exchange damage at least 3 times. 2. They must have a boss monster with 3000 attack. And 3, and this is the reason why Chaz Princeton is the rival for GX, they must have been a constant since the beginning of the series, or at least by the first arc. This also excludes characters like Aster Phoenix and Zane Truesdale because they have to fit all 3 of their criteria, and most of them only fit 2 or 1 of the 3 criteria, and Chaz Princeton fits all 3. Unlike a lot of other shonen anime and manga, the Yu-Gi-Oh series does not have a clear divide of power. With this in mind, I have made what I believe to be the definitive way to test a character's deck and effectiveness in the series game of choice, by ranking them based on their effectiveness in the TCG/OCG. How will I do that? Well, let's get into the rules and criteria so we can figure out who is the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh rival. 1 deck per character. I'm generally going to play cards they played at their strongest, but all cards they used are fair game. Notice I said cards they used, so I'm excluding support their archetype or cards may have gotten in later sets. This is based on cards they use alone. With this, I'm also excluding the one-of rule that is so prevalent in the anime. This is a rule set in place by the anime where a character may only have a very impressive card, but only play 1 copy of it. Not due to logic, mostly just due to the plot. Along with that, and I know this is a point of contention, I'm excluding ban cards, as it would not be very fair for a character in the original series to have a card that others cannot use because they were banned at that time. With all of this in mind, I will be constructing 40 card decks based on each character to remain as competitive as possible while remaining true to the character. While I'm fine with taking liberties in some situations, they must have at least 75% of their deck, or about 30 cards. Then, I will duel each of them against every other participant in best 2 out of 3 duels. Every victory in a match awards a participant a point. Whichever character has the most total points wins. In the event of a tie, I will look at the quality of victories. For example, a character beating someone like Rex Raptor would not count as much as a character beating Yugi. And finally, as I must reiterate, Powerscaling Yu-Gi-Oh is based on the TCG. While their cards are fine and good, I want to see if they actually existed with no outside interference or special magical powers, who would be the strongest rival. So let's get started. Seto Kaiba plays a dragon deck, focused on a beatdown strategy based around disrupting the opponent's field. Also, before we begin properly, keep in mind that Seto played a lot of cards throughout his various appearances. I made what I think is the most optimal version, and I tested out various other versions like Chaos Max, but if you can think of a more optimal version, put it in the comment section below, I'd love to hear it. Anyways, let's continue on. The rival to the King of Games, Seto, definitely has a lot going for him. Seto, much like many of the other rivals here, focuses purely on power and disruption. To achieve this, he plays Ring of Destruction, Enemy Controller, and the Critias fusions to obliterate the opponent. Despite this strategy, Seto's lack of searchability and draw power, along with his relative straightforwardness of his strategy, may hold him back here. Seto may not be the king of games, but his power in this competition is definitely not second rate. Chaz plays an armed dragon deck, based around leveling up his dragons and summoning large monsters fairly quickly. Chaz may not be the most powerful duelist in Duelist Academy, but he's determined. Chaz's main strategy is to summon armed dragon level 3 on the opponent's turn, either by flying Kamakiri number 1 or Mass Dragon, and letting it survive until the standby phase to evolve, and summoning multiple copies and various destruction cards to put pressure on the opponent. With all that being said though, as you can probably guess by now, Chaz's deck is a mess. We are playing Magical Mallet for God's sake, in an attempt to shuffle back the multiple bricks that are the armed dragons. While you may say that using the VWXYZ or Ojamas would have been a better plan than this was in fact the deck that beat all the others. While it's not unplayable, the deck suffers against any deck that can summon multiple monsters, and even when it gets to level 7 or 10, it's usually just a matter of time before they are destroyed and Chaz is back to square one. Despite Chaz's weaker archetype in comparison, Chaz can definitely sneak out wins, and do not underestimate him in this competition. Jack Atlas plays a power deck based around summoning dragons, a theme I'm sure you've guessed by now, and other large synchros that can push for big damage and set up various combos to do so. Jack Atlas's plan is an all-out offensive. While he does play a couple of protective cards, like Battle Fader and Fiendish Chain, his big synchros have insane utility, like Crimson Blader shutting down the opponent's high-level summons, and Chaos King Archfiend switching attack and defense to push for game out of nowhere. If all else fails, he has Red Nova Dragon, which can get to a minimum of 5,000 attack, and that can easily take over the game. Despite his deck seeming powerful, it is highly reliant on going second, needing some way to summon a level 5 and a tuner, both of which are difficult to do in one turn with the available cards. Also, being primarily a turbo duelist, Jack only had one useful spell card. This combination of problems may spell defeat for Jack more often than not. With all this in mind, despite consistency issues and flaws maintaining field presence going first, the King definitely has the skills to dominate with a little luck. Tenjo plays a Galaxy/Photon deck based on Exceed summoning and employing anti-Exceed strategies to defeat the opponent. Kite's deck is an interesting case in this competition. A lot, and I do mean a lot, of Kite's cards are anime only, so my choices for useful cards were surprisingly limited. Kite's general strategy is using various cards like Starliege Lord Galaxian or Galaxy Wizard to quickly get out Galaxy Eyes Photon Dragon into play, before using Galaxy Knight or Galaxy Expedition to get another level 8 on the field to set up for various rank 8s. The most useful of which is number 62, Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon, that can increase his attack and be revived if destroyed by a card effect with double attack. He also has number 46, Dragulon, and in a competition where nearly every single character's boss monster is a dragon, this is an incredibly powerful effect. With this being said, Kai has some issues with bricking. Kai needs to get 2 level 4s on the field or some way to summon Galaxy Eye soon or the deck folds. If not, the deck can kind of coast on using Starliege Pile of Dynamo, but without the rank 8 plays, the deck does not have an endgame. While no one else has numbers, Kite may be the hunter the rest of the duelists may have to fear. Declan, or Ryaji, Akaba plays a DD deck based around swarming the field and using fusion, synchros, exceeds, and pendulums in conjunction to conquer the opponent. Listen, Declan is an absolute monster. With incredible searching, various combos to set up multiple negate boards, and disruption and recovery, DDD is one of the strongest decks featured on the series yet. The field can often be ended with a spell and trap negate with DDD Curse King Siegfried, a fusion that turns the damage you would take into life points with DDD King Oracle Dark, and any combination of Dark Contracts, one of which is Dark Contract with the Eternal Darkness being single-handedly one of the strongest cards ever. Yeah, Declan is the jack of all trades and the master of all. When it comes to weaknesses, I mean, sometimes there are fields where the Dark Contract damage cannot be negated, so Declan can take upwards of 3,000 damage if it's not stopped, which could be lethal if he does not have the aforementioned Dark or one of the effect damage negating pendulums. Besides that, I have nothing. Declan is the leader of the Lancers, and his unbelievable power is not to be messed with. Every other member in this competition will be fighting their greatest challenge when they go up against him. He's just so strong! And finally, Varus plays a rocket deck, based around link summoning and destroying his own cards for various benefits. The leader of the terrorist organization, the Knights of Hanoi, Varus or Revolver, has access to some of the strongest cards in the game. With Red Reboot and a recurable Mirror Force, Varus has it all. Compounding this is his slew of boss monsters, being the Boral Dragons that can take monsters, reach astronomical attack, and negate. In desperation, he has access to the Topologic Zero Boros that can vanish everything and come back stronger than before. Despite this, the lack of the TCG only support holds Varus back significantly, as his turns can often start slower if he does not have any way to destroy his monsters or get multiple on the field. Because of this, Varus struggles in the early game and he can lose before he even gets started. Varus is the newest rival here, and the power of his dragons is shown in full display. The Prince of Hanoi definitely has a very real chance of getting to the top. This competition was a very different beast compared to the previous two, with every rival focusing on might. We need to look at which deck could throw out the largest monsters the most consistently. While there was nuance to each rival, with Seto's focus on disruption, Chaz's persistence, Jack's strong synchro plays, Kai's rank 8s, Declan's mastery, and Varus' sheer use of power cards, this was one of the most interesting episodes I've done so far. However, only one rival can be the strongest. So, the strongest rival is... You guys already know, it's Declan freaking Akaba. As As I said before, Declan is a monster. Any strategy the others tried, Declan responded with a direct counter or a stronger version of that strategy. Not only did Declan get a perfect score of 10, no one took a single duel off of him. Declan is safely the strongest rival in the series by a large margin. Second place is Varus. While not as absolutely broken as Declan, Varus' powerful links, generic staples, and the ability to recover from a cleared field allowed Varus to grab the silver medal at 8 points, only losing to Declan because of course he did. I'm sure many of you will be happy to hear that Seto Kaiba got the bronze medal with 6 points. While yes, his deck is a lot more rudimentary than his peers, and he still took a few match losses because of this, Seto has a solid game plan and easily summonable boss monsters with Blue Eyes Alternative Dragon and Critias. And finally, as an actual compliment to Seto, I will say that his individual cards are among the strongest here. Kai is surprisingly 4th place. While his endgame is very strong, he more often than not could not get to that endgame due to the numerous bricks his deck displayed, which ended with him taking losses to Seto, Declan, and Varus, giving him 5 total points. 5th place is Chaz Princeton. I told you not to underestimate him. Really, this just came down to how his generic disruption and recurrable boss monsters that overwhelmed the last place and snuck out a couple of surprise wins, giving him a total of 4 points. And finally, Jack Atlas is in last place. This shocked the absolute hell out of me at first, but when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Jack simply cannot deal with going first. He has a surprisingly small amount of ways to special summon monsters, in a synchro deck mind you, and he could not recover if his monsters were stopped, embarrassingly losing to Seto with Red Nova Dragon on the field. I hate to say it, but Jack Atlas, while you're the king in my heart, you're definitely king of the bottom here. So that's my episode over Powerscaling Yu-Gi-Oh! Based on who is the strongest Yu-Gi-Oh! Rival. This took quite a lot of work as I had to make a lot of different versions of the characters' decks and test them all out, and these were the strongest versions I could create. However, no matter what I say, people are going to get mad, so please, put it in the comment section below constructively, and I would love to hear your opinion on the video. Besides that, otherwise, I'm Jared Discord. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have an excellent day. Bye.